What are the Salem witch trials? The Salem witch trials were held back in the 1600s. It was a prosecution of women being claimed to use the devil's magic or so-called witchcraft. They would sign their name, and then the devil would grant them powers to do his work for them. The Salem trials were held back in the 1600s in Massachusetts, which it was a long story that so-called claims a bunch of people hunted down women, and if they confessed that they were doing the devil's magic, they were executed by them. There were 200 people prosecuted in Salem, and then 20 of them were executed. Eventually, after all that happened, they decided that the trials were a mistake and that they should have never done them in the first place. But until then, there were 3 people that were accused, so-called. 2 of them said they didn't do it, but one said that she did, and said that she saw red and yellow dogs, and that a black man came to her in the so-called story of Salem witch trials, and that she signed her name, and then she began to do stuff. So then all 3 of them were prosecuted and executed, and that's what based the paranormal stuff around Salem that whole time. Also, there are a bunch of movies and books based around the Salem witch trials, which take a different turn on the stuff. Some sources are Smithsonian Magazine, Goodreads.com for the books, and Screen Rants for the movies. Some movies behind this are like The Conjuring and The Covenant. It's so-called based around Salem. Some of them don't mention it directly, but they're based around it. Also, on May 27th of 1962, Governor William Phips, he held trials and stuff for them. It ran from the 1300s all the way up to the 1600s, where they abolished it after the 1600s because, they said it was a mistake all along. So, on that day, there were also more than 3 of them prosecuted. There's so-called 200. And the Salem witch trials today, it has spanned for 300 years. From back then to now, it is still popular today, people researching it and seeing if it was really true. You don't hear much today about witchcraft, but there are new forms of witchcraft. We got cults and stuff like that still today that they had back then. Like the so-called cults that are supposed to be fictional and non-fictional is the Illuminati. They are stuff that amounted from that. And it kept Massachusetts. It was based in Massachusetts. There's different parts of Salem. There's a Salem in West Virginia. And I believe there's also one in Pennsylvania, but the witch trials were based in Massachusetts. The charges against the people were death. While most of them survived, there was 20 of them that got executed. So that is the Salem witch trials and how it accumulated to today in modern times of people practicing witchcraft and stuff like that. So it should be known that just don't practice witchcraft. It says on the article in the Smithsonian that even today people could practice witchcraft like back in, and it's just awful.